is Dr. Bill Hamman from Hamman Ag Research. His talk is on cleaning up the weedy backyard first. Dr. Bill Hamman has more than 25 years of experience training pesticide applicator certification in Alberta, with 45 years of field research experience as well. After completing his Ph.D. in 1973, Dr. Hamman worked as a weed scientist at Agriculture Canada before working in research and development at Monsanto for 25 years. In 2003, he started Hamman Ag Research, a private research consulting company that now has 12 employees conducting research in weed science, insect, disease, fertility, and variety hybrid development trials. Welcome, Bill.
I thought I've been around for so long, maybe I would just get ChatGPT to do my presentation. So I sent them a note on Sunday, and this is what came back. Sorry, Dr. Bill has been around for so long, he can do his own presentation, although we will let him use a few slides from Dr. Charles Geddes. But Dr. Bill is not long-winded, so he will easily finish by 4:30, so the audience need not worry. Anybody that knows me knows I cannot do ChatGPT. I'm a little disappointed that Farming Smarter guys didn't get up here and use some of that. These are my coordinates right here in Lethbridge, and our research farm is 10 miles out of Lethbridge on the northwest edge of, well, a little bit northwest of Colhurst. So just a little bit about where I've been. I have kind of a weedy history. I sprayed roadsides for Taber Municipal District way back in 1966 and 67. In those days, we used a low volatile ester of 2,4-D. Wasn't that low in terms of volatility. It was the isooctyl ester. And I had some 2,4-D on my blue jeans when I went home one time. We didn't have a lot of the best safety equipment then. My mom kicked me out of the house. Well, she kicked the blue jeans out, hung them on the line, and the next morning, my dad's tomatoes had signs of 2,4-D vapor drift. So I wasn't that popular with my dad even way back then, but I did learn a few things more and was a weed scientist at the research station in Lethbridge from 76 to 79, and also many years with Monsanto and R&D. From 2003 till present, I've been involved in doing field research at our contract field research at our research farm. Over the years, and when Ken was out there, I spread many weeds with Ken Coles, and then when Trevor Deering worked for me for a while, we spread some more, but we sprayed lots too, and generally kept them under control. Way back when, on our farm there in Taber, we didn't really have kochia in the 1950s. All of a sudden, it showed up. And it was along fence lines and in dugouts, and the pheasant population just boomed, and we had lots of successful hunts in kochia. So back then, I really did quite like kochia. Now we realize brush is good and kochia is not. And so let's try and clean up all those places that now have the kochia in them instead of brush. Just to remind you, though, of course, there's many ways we can control kochia. It doesn't have to be chemical all the time. And always to think about the IPM processes, integrated pest management, things like sanitation, keeping the seed from moving into your field or spreading in from fence lines, for example. Clean your machinery between jobs. Cultural control. Plant grassy herb mixes in some of those farmyard areas or the waste areas, I guess, where maybe machinery is being kept. Try and increase competitiveness of the desirables by burning, leave tall shrubs, alternate uses, just some of the ideas that come in, and we're looking at oil well leases around. And again, that some of the problems the industrial guys have with trying to control kochia. apply crushed rock or mulch. And that's, I think, one of the things we see in a lot of farmyards, especially in the feedlot alley, where we see a lot of gravel that has been hauled in, and that helps to control. In terms of mechanical, cutting top growth, and I think Mark Ooslander pointed out this morning, you can cut it low even after harvest, and that stuff can regrow and maybe only get 6 or 8 inches tall, but still produce seed for the next year. So mechanical cutting isn't always the best solution, but could certainly be part of an IPM program. Biological herbivore management for control using cattle, sheep, or goats. A little bit off the wall on that one with the goats, I guess. Chemical, lots of spraying with different selectives like Octane XL, dicamba. Short-term and longer-term residuals. So we have lots of options now with chemical control. So certainly hand roguing is a possibility. Maybe not with some of the kochia infestations we get around here, but herbivore control with sheep, goats, cattle, just to point out that a lot of times that the animals can help us manage some of these weed problems. Herbicide-resistant weeds, kochia control, of course, is one of our number one weed-resistant problems in throughout Western Canada. Recent innovations are out there there's a number of new chemicals that have been developed and marketed by our plant protection companies. Bring back some of the old ones, and certainly some of the ones we look at is Authority, Oracle, Decia. Both those products have Banville or have dicamba as their active ingredient. Infinity FX is another newer one that's out there with 3 active ingredients and does a great job in crop. Dicamba, again, I point out Oracle or Decia is are the 2 trade names for the dicamba product that is standalone products. Mega, there we are, that good old acronym again, a little different than what they use in the US. So make edge great again. So some ideas, and we're going to finish off today with me talking about how we can make edge great again. Edge granule surface application at high rates. And part of this theory of having edge close or right on the surface or close to the surface is that, as Mark Ooslander pointed out this morning, if you have a shallow germinating weed like kochia, because it's a small seed germinating very close to the surface, if you have your chemical blanket right there at the surface and you have moisture as that weed seed germinates, that chemical blanket will take out that shallow germinating weed seed. Not that great for things like wild oats that come from a lot deeper, but then anyway, if we're targeting something like kochia that is a main problem in some of these areas, then we can use this concept of shallow chemical, blanketed chemical to control the shallow germinating weeds. Just a couple of things on the Dr. Charles. I borrowed a couple of these slides from him. Many mechanisms of resistance, and it's always good to review these. One of the great things about giving a presentation is you spend some time getting it together, and you review every year what we need to know and get reviewed for handling a problem like kochia. And you can see in this slide that we have 2 main types of resistance: target site mutation, as well as the other one over in the right-hand side. So target site mutation is of a couple of types, and so if we look at, maybe the best idea is just to look at this schematic. And we have normally a herbicide molecule is absorbed into the weed through the leaf surface to attack the target site enzyme. So that's our little enzyme, that little black target site there. So because of the molecular structure of the active ingredient, gets absorbed in and attaches to the target site of that enzyme, and the weed dies. Target site resistance occurs when you have a weed that's out there from a genetic perspective, maybe it's only 1 in 100 million or something like that, and you start using a selective pressure on that particular resistant weed, now you start to increase that population of that weed that now doesn't have that target site that's sensitive. So the target site has been mutated, and now the herbicide molecule cannot attack to the target site, and the weed survives. That we know is not the main mechanism of resistance with kochia and glyphosate. Rather, we have instead numerous copies of the target site that are produced. So gene amplification is another name for that, or gene duplication for the mechanism that is responsible for glyphosate resistance. So you can see there, we have target site, many targets, many different multiple copies of that enzyme now. So now the poor herbicide molecule is swamped by having too many sites, and it can't tie into or can't lock up all of them. And now we have resistance because there's so many of the target sites that are there relative to the amount of herbicide molecule. One idea would be to increase the herbicide rate dramatically to take in all those or kill all those other enzymes or tie into them, and thus overcome the resistance. We do know that the map of resistance samples of kochia in Western Canada, something like, it's estimated, and this is Dr. Charles' number, 80% of the kochia in Alberta has glyphosate resistance, primarily because of that gene duplication up to 20 times what the normal susceptible population would be. And that is the same mechanism of resistance that has been down all through the Midwest and southern U.S. grain growing area as well. Gene duplication with resistance in kochia. A couple of other types of mechanism of resistance, and one of them is this interfering with the transportation or sequestration is another idea. So this is something that is not really a gene duplication, but it is really about how the weed has got a little more accustomed to that herbicide, and continual use gives a gradual selection for a more resistant line of that particular weed. So with kochia and dicamba, the resistance comes from basically the dicamba doesn't get transported. So that is the mechanism of resistance for dicamba resistance in kochia. And here you see just a map of dicamba resistant kochia samples in Western Canada. That solid black is really the black soil zone, but really if you concentrate on the kochia samples in the southern prairies, which is where most of kochia is, you can see, and it's probably hard to see, but there are a number of sites where we do have dicamba resistance with kochia. The significance, and I think Mark also alluded to this morning, types of herbicide weed resistance and what it means in terms of herbicide rates and rotation of your herbicides. That target site resistance, the TSR, develops from one weed that maybe one out of 100 million is resistant. So we've selected for that particular resistant weed strain. And high herbicide rates select for resistant weeds. And I think I alluded to that in those earlier slides. So herbicide rotation will help slow resistance with this type of resistance, because now that target site is probably still susceptible to other modes of action. Metabolism-based resistance, however, is different in that there is a slow selection of the resistant population. So low levels of the weed, but they keep getting smarter. And one of the ways I kind of describe that is you and your dad were pretty smart. They get together and you're a little smarter. You marry somebody else that's a little smarter. Now the offsprings are even a little smarter. So that's kind of the way we look at this with recurrent selection through continuous use. So it's a slow selection, and the significance of that is that low herbicide rates select for resistant weeds. So in that case, that type of resistance, you'd want to use a higher rate. So herbicide rotation is less effective. So understanding the type of weed and the type of resistance helps in terms of our standing our strategy for herbicides and control. Strategies for attacking kochia, I said utilize old herbicide technologies, and we're hearing that from some of the farmers. Let's go back to square one with some of these things that we know about. Utilize knowledge of integrated pest management. Utilize alternate modes of action. And you've heard that many times before. So it's not a super weed, but I call it a supersized weed. Supersized kochia. And this is on my own farm, so you can see that I do have an issue with some kochia. One of the best things that we've come across to really help in kochia control, and as we look at what Mark even talked about this morning, was the fall applied herbicides to start there, or the spring applied, soil applied. And Authority is certainly one that has excellent kochia control. Many crops, it's kind of interesting, and this is one that interests me when we have our asparagus patch and our raspberry patch and our Saskatoons, is this Authority is registered for control of weeds around these crops. And underneath, so applying the dormant stage before the crops leaf out, before these berries and that leaf out, real good idea. So pretty extensive label for Authority, and one that's worth checking. So it's a common product to be used in many different crops: peas, wheat, canola, and more. And around the farmyard, I point that one out too. Machine storage yard, registered on strawberries, raspberries, Saskatoon, 50 other tree and berry crops. Does it work on dandelion seedlings? Erin, who does a pesticide applicator training with me, she's got our strawberry patch and out in our farm there, and there's issues with, we got rid of the kochia, but now we've got dandelion seedlings. So her question to me a few days ago was, does Authority work for seedling dandelion? If you get rid of the initial flush, can you get the seedlings? So I'm not sure about that one. We'll find out this year, I guess. Leaves the grasses like established brome grass and crescent wheatgrass, so that's going to help. That will help in some of that farmyard area to help keep the kochia from going to seed and spreading. Then these dicamba products, Oracle and Decia, annual weeds, the rates of these products vary tremendously, and all the way from annual weeds that would be in crop at 0.25 liters per hectare. Perennials is a higher rate, and you could run into certainly some residual with sensitive crops after you've used that higher rate on dicamba. But when we deal with some of our industrial applicators, they're very interested in higher rates. And of course, that dicamba is one of the top products in terms of killing brush species and tree species. But again, you're getting up to some very high rates. Infinity, we had phenomenal success with Infinity FX last year. So we had some Authority out, and partway through the season, we started to lose some of that control with kochia. We came back with Infinity, and we were getting a little late with the application staging, but it did a great job on late kochia. So you just wanted to watch for in your cropping. And of course, there's 3 modes of actions in Infinity FX, pyrosulfatol, bromoxyl, fluroxypyr. And I don't know if anybody goes off the label and throws in a little MCPA ester too, but we've done a little research on that one. Octane XL has always been a standard for control of kochia and a number of other weeds, such as roundleaf mallow. And now we know there is some resistance issues with fluroxypyr and kochia. So again, more need to look at rotation of herbicides. Other kochia products, 2,4-D ester, high rate. And we've had good success with this when kochia has been very small. So it's good activity on small kochia, but it can get beyond control stage pretty quickly. Bayer products, and we have not really gone to the Esplanade, which is a product that is something that we bought the jug last year. I think it was about $600. But anyway, so we still some more research we need to do on that one. But it's certainly something that that industrial folks have been using, and in and around the city of Lethbridge as well. So new active ingredient in Indaziflam, group 629, and pre-emergent control. Will also get grasses. So one of the interests in the U.S. is for some downy brome control as well. And residual, kochia suppression is all they claim on that particular label. So just going back to some of our research on the farm with our supersized kochia, fall granular herbicide. So here we are with a little Valmar applicator. It's a 5-meter applicator. And so we were going in on the fall application, edge granule. And so this is the product we're using. It's kind of handy, kind of nice using a granular herbicide. You don't have to get the sprayer going, right? So here we are with that little 5-meter granular applicator. And we went in and we applied at 2 and 3 times the regular in-crop rate with that edge. And this was along a little fence line and along also our irrigation risers in our field. And this is a shot the next spring. So this was in early June, and we had some really excellent control, the treated versus the untreated. You see the kochia there. And that was at the 2x rate. The fall application. The fall application, by the way, was on December the 3rd, that in 2023. Just another shot, and you can see some of the grass that we've left that next year is actually downy brome. If you look in that top area there, so which is worse, kochia or downy brome? At this point, we don't have resistance to downy brome, but I think there has been 1 or 2 sites identified in the Tabor area with resistance to glyphosate and downy brome. Anyway, this is just another shot and showing again there control of kochia with fall surface edge at 2x rate. So pretty good control up until about the end of June, and then the edge wore off. So we were not getting a full season long control with it, and it did come back later season. But we did have 3, 4, nearly 5 inches of precipitation in May and June. And then we also had irrigation going over this particular area here with our buried main line. So again, just another shot, and we went up to 3x rate. Now, one of the things you can say is, gosh, that's going to be getting a little pricey. And yes, we did purchase some fall edge bags in fall of 2023. Is about $187 a bag, which normally would do about 4 or 5 acres. So when we're doing it on a small area, we're getting a fairly high price per acre. But then we're looking at small areas. So the field label rate, we'd be looking at something like 12 to 15 granules per square inch. And you can see them sort of showing out there. One of the things I tried, and that's the nice thing about being in research, right, is we went out the other day, that was yesterday, and tried this little thing. So if we're going to do a small area with edge and some of these little areas, maybe right around a riser in the field, we want to be able to get something down quicker than just a little shaker can. So this little Scott spin spreader worked really good. I had a setting on 1 for it. And I did a calculation. So we went through, we figured out what the rate would be per acre, and then on 1 square meter, about 5 grams. So about 500 grams on 100 square meters. And what I did was I went in, I've used 1 very large Tim's coffee cup. Got to keep everything Canadian these days, right? So instead of McDonald's or so a Tim's large coffee cup, poured it in, and this was about half full. So, and that was about 500 grams. And then I just walked along with that little spin spreader there yesterday. As you know, there's snow out there. Now, I don't know how well this shows up. Can you see a whole bunch of little granular there on that white snow? Do you see that? Hopefully you can. So that was a 2-time rate on the snow, and I have a water bottle there for a indication of the size of area we're looking at. Probably could have gone a little closer. So that was simply done as I walked along with that little spin spreader here and putting on that granule. So my setting was at 1. It was actually probably a little bit low for trying to achieve the rate I wanted. And this was just right along our irrigation buried main line. So just a thought for something to be able to do late fall or early spring. I'm not sure it's a great idea to do on the snow. If the granules settle right through, if we get a Chinook, that's great, as long as the snow doesn't blow away with the granules. So just an idea, and $20, $30 at one of the local hardware stores, Home Hardware, and I just got that one yesterday. I had another one, but it got all yellow just from yesterday. So I thought I better bring in a brand new one. So just certainly an idea for maybe to go out and granules are very convenient to use, right? You don't have to mix them in a sprayer. And I actually have 4 or 5 bags of Edge that I got in the bigger bag, or the 22 kg bags. And last fall I got a lot smarter. I said, I'm just going to buy a mini sack. So I still have a full mini sack left over from last fall. So if somebody wanted to get a single bag, I know they're hard to get, the smaller 22 kg, you could get one from me at the price I paid for them, which is if you wanted to try this. So just an idea, or see if you can get it commercially. Again, it's a pretty neat idea along a fence line, maybe along a corral. Just to be able to try. It's not going to be something for the full year, but it will be something that you get some good activity. We did some last year in March of last year, and also we had some really good control. But we did lose that control by the time you got into late June or early July, just through dissipation of that chemical. So strategies for attacking kochia: utilize knowledge of integrated pest management. I was almost going to promise, if I didn't finish by 4:30, that I would buy the first round. So, but I better pull that back. So, anyway, utilize the knowledge of IPM and start in the farmyard and fence lines. Utilize old herbicide technologies. Always good to go back to those things like dicamba. Is there a place for it? Yes. Is there a place for that? Some of that Group 3 chemistry, like Treflan or Edge. Utilize alternate modes of action. Try new ideas. Kochia War, every year begins a new assault. Make your plans this winter. Kochia War in 2025, good luck. Focus on the picture. It will change the direction of the stairs every 10 seconds. And this is one of the things that the mind cannot zone. Has it changed for you? So this is very much like kochia. Okay, maybe it doesn't change direction every 10 seconds, but it certainly does every couple of months, doesn't it? Gee, I did it without GPT, Ken. I didn't do anything off-label, did I? It's all in the name of research anyway.
Quick question from Slido. Sulfentrazone works well on kochia so far. Is it beneficial that it's being registered for more crops?
Well, it still comes back to crop rotation for sure, which essentially enables you to rotate herbicides. I think it is beneficial that it's out there for more options, but at the same time, you're right. the more crops, the more times it's used, the greater the chance of resistant development. And there has been some issues with group 14 resistant development, especially in the US.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions from the floor?
More just a comment than a question. So your first slide reminded me of my first job out of college in the early 1990s working for the Brooks Pheasant Hatchery. We actually bought kochia seed and planted it in our pens for the habitat for the pheasants in the early 90s, late 80s. So it's come a long ways.
They do love their kochia seed. And cover.
Temperature of spraying. Ever play around with temperature of spraying? We used to grow alfalfa seed, and I'd use plain old partner because alfalfa. So, but I would spray like when it's 27, 28 above outside. And I could spray 6-inch kochia and beat the crap out of it.
The general rule for killing a weed is with a herbicide is the faster it's growing, the more active the growth, the better it takes it in, and thus the better the control. Faster it takes it in, better the efficiency of penetration. If it's hot and dry, it can be a very, very warm day. It can be well over 30, and it's not going to take it in just because of the resistance that the waxy cuticle and the slow down of the growth, the dormancy of the weed during the day when it's hot and dry. So I think temperature is really all about the conditions for growth. And I think Mark talked to this morning too about extremely cool temperatures. If you get the frost action and you actually get some leaf kill, that's when you're going to run into issues with absorption and translocation. And even something like bromoxynil, I think, did you ask about bromoxynil? Yeah. Even bromoxynil is a contact herbicide, but still has to be absorbed into the leaf to do its kill. It gets in, absorbed in, and does its kill right inside the leaf. It doesn't translocate, but it still has to get in.
We would use that a time and a half anyways of a heavy rate almost, but it was way off label, but it seemed to help out. Or even on Timothy, I would use Target, at a heavy rate of Target. And I would never spray when it's 20 above because I would waste. But when it's wet, but it's under stress and the heat, whatever else, it sure seems to make a cheap chemical pretty awesome. Yeah. Everybody's always worried about spraying when it's hot, but on most of these crops like that, it's not I wait for it.
Yeah, and certainly moisture, nutrients, and temperature is all about rapid absorption, good efficacy, but also can be an issue with crop phyto because now more is getting into the crop and you can run into some phytotoxicity issues. In fact, for the longest time, 2,4-D ester was not really sold to any extent in northern Alberta because MCPA ester was considered a little safer to the crop, so less crop phyto. And the big difference, northern Alberta and southern Alberta? Basically moisture and probably nutrients in the soil. Ken, it was fun to come back to Farming Smarter, so enjoyed it.
We have a question over here.
Dr. Bill, in a research setting and crop destruct, wink, wink, how many ounces of MCPA would you add to the Infinity FX? A crop destruct, of course.
For Infinity FX? Yeah. If I was to do some more research on it this year, it would be about half the regular MCPA rate. You might talk to your your herbicide supplier to find out what a couple other farmers have done. So.
Well, Bill, ChatGPT has nothing on you.